So I want to ask you, what do you want to leave with the audience, especially the young people? Messages do you have to give them? Can you give them 5 pointers or 5 things that they can remember or think about or to raise consciousness about?
I will not give five, but I will deal with one particularly.
Okay.
Because, you know, my mother used to say, now everything cup you hear,
Mm-hmm.
you must go.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, she used to say, as young people growing up, we used to like to party. But it's not every party you need to be present at,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it seems to be the driving force among many of our young people. Party here, party every night, regular parties. And I think in today's climate, we have to be choosy
Mm-hmm.
which parties we go to. Another thing them old people used to say, you must learn to dance to your own music. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, you not go where you're going to be inimical to your people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they get your enemy. I keep on party and you go support them. The
Mm-hmm.
people, them not give you work, them not want to support your livelihood or anything, but they want you to support. It's like we got Chinese coming into Guyana
Mm-hmm.
establishing business. The Chinese do not employ you, but you go into the Chinese and buy.
Mm-hmm.
Why? So you must pick and choose where you spend your money, right? These are things which we have to start dealing with because if you do not start being selective,
Mm-hmm.
you will be working against yourself many a times, right? We need to start considering how we can go back to the land. We need to start considering our the need to be educated, to be trained. Because look at this oil industry that is going on in Guyana. How many of us Guyanese can participate fully? You see, the lands that we've been discarding, if we still had those lands, we could have bartered with many of those people and say, look, we got the land, come build for them, and we can work out a partnership. Talking about land, I think it is time not only the people of Ghana start thinking how they can utilize their lands better, but I think our governmental system needs to look at land in a more serious light. I've been to places in this world where
Mm-hmm.
foreigners couldn't buy land.
Mm-hmm.
Why foreigners must buy land in Guyana?
Mm-hmm.
They want to establish a business in Guyana. Let the land be the Guyana. Because you can't establish business in thin air.
Mm-hmm.
Let the Guyanese be part of that business.
Mm-hmm.
So the business have a partner, you have a Guyanese partner. I mentioned China just now.
Mm-hmm.
You must understand, I cannot go to China. You cannot go to China and establish a business unless you have a Chinese partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, not only having a Chinese, you must be taking something into China that China does not have. And you
Mm-hmm.
must also be teaching that partner that something. We have
Yes.
to we have to stop behaving as if we're hand to mouth at something I will talk about. We must not behave as if we are hand to mouth. Are we rich now? Are we get
Mm-hmm.
aisle? And as Eric Williams used to say, aisle don't spile.
Style.
So,
Ah,
that but tell me what to talk about, but me think we got past
you
five
see, you
already.
got you, but before you don't say, and I
You
would
don't say,
concur with what you said about in certain countries in the world. I lived in Palau, tiny island nation in the Pacific, and you talk about wielding political power, powerful little country. It's matrilineal. That means land is passed down through the female line. The women, they decide who owns the land and so on. They have the memory of who owns the land and so on. No foreigner can buy land there. They can lease land, but as the Palauans would tell you, you can put that hotel there with a 99% near lease. You can't carry that hotel anywhere. And so they make laws to protect themselves. And sometimes those laws might look as if they're draconian for the foreigner. But when you look at it in terms of what the Palauan has to lose, they have a right to make it. So you can't buy land. You can go there. You have to have a reason to be there. That means you have to have a work permit or some kind of status to be in that country. So you don't come slack about, and doing all kinds of skullduggery and so on. Some people say they must make it expensive to go to that country because you're going to God's country, pristine waters and everything. Because if you make it too cheap, anybody can come. But then if you make it too expensive, you have a certain clientele that's going to come. You have to be wise. And maybe we can take pages out of some of these books. Another thing too is that sometimes if you look at Hawaii was taken over by the United States. A lot of Hawaiian culture has become museum pieces. Do we want to be museum pieces? So when I read stories here, I want us to know our stories, learn the stories, so that we don't have to go read them in a book only. They are stories that we tell. And the ways we tell stories now, like you said, they've already changed. There's not the back step with the fireside and the moonlight night and so on. It's platforms like these. And we can have the jump up thing because we're social beings. We have the jump up thing, we go to party and whatever, but there's a time for everything. And I feel like this is a critical time. I do this in the month of August, not because I can't tell these stories at other times in the year. I can tell them other times in the year, but this is a time when we're most aware of our African culture. And I want to say there's more we can do. We can hold on to our legacies and think more strategically about them because we have the advantage of history and we have the advantage of knowledge and world knowledge to know how to do it. I mean, I don't have land in Buxton personally, a family land, and so I always think about that. And if I can't be on family land, I put family on the family land and tell family, you can live here. You got to develop here, and because I'm interested in procuring our ancestral land, and it mustn't come out of the family. And I would hope that places like Buxton, you don't sell out your birthright. And I was telling you, I was quarreling against this children property thing, but you made me see children property in a different way. So you want to talk about that?
Well, children property. You see, children property, there are pros and cons with it.
Yes.
Parent may die and leave the property for his children. Why? He left it for his children. He may not have recognized any one of them as being serious among his children. Or even if he recognized one as being serious, he may feel that one may estrange the property from the others. So he wants to make sure that everybody can have, as you said, be comfortable within that there.
Yes.
And using that to probably build something for themselves down the line. But what many of our foreparents did not realize is that the legal complications or the ramifications tied to it would not have permitted that. Because, for instance, if my father had left a piece of land for us, we cannot monetize that land if we want to do something. When I say monetize, we cannot use that land to go and get as collateral to get something from the bank because it's in our father's name. On the other hand, we can lease it to you and you can monetize it, which is really not right. Something must be done about that. So what has happened, I'm aware of some colleagues of mine living on the country, their families got a lot of land coming down in that way, but them boys living very modest, very poor, because they got acres upon acres of land. But what they have been doing, they have been leasing it to some other person who will pay them a lease every year, nothing substantial. That man was able to go to the bank, got tractor, got rice combine from all those lands and other lands, and he is a big rice farmer today.
Mm-hmm.
While all they're getting is the least money.
Mm-hmm.
Were they able to monetize, they could have gotten the tractor and the combine themselves
Right.
and the farm lands and live just as sumptuous as the man and his
You
family.
know, that remind me of something because I remember when the Africans purchased the land, remember they had their pittance that they pooled together. So they
Yeah.
made this big purchase. When they made that big purchase, they were depleted. So they didn't have resources now to keep up with the upkeep of this thing, of the land that kept requiring
No,
money because the rules had changed. So what
no,
I'm
no.
hearing here, yes.
I will not go there because those people, they were shrewd. They introduced something which was not known in the Western world, to
Mhm.
the Western world, cooperativism. That is why
Yes.
we are a cooperative republic in Ghana, of Ghana.
Mhm.
You know, Victoria, if you look at the memorandum of understanding among the peoples that
Mhm.
bought Victoria, it spells out the all the tenets of a cooperative.
Mhm.
And that was in 1839. The
Right.
world recognizes the first cooperative society as the Rochdale Weavers, which
Mhm.
was established in 1844.
Mhm.
What, what happened there, my sister? Them people in Victoria established one cooperative society before Rochdale, but they weren't given the, the credit.
Yes. Mhm.
But no, it's not only Victoria, we had a cooperative society. BV was formed on a co-op, bought on
Right.
the cooperative. Boxer was bought by on the
Mhm.
cooperative, and so on. So now, when these lands were bought, the Times of London in 85, reported that our people were a band. They refer to our people as a band of socialists because, so when we talk of socialism, since way back then, socialism was a bad word.
Right.
So they will not give us the credit. And then to really consider,
Mhm.
if you see this practice happening from one village to the next, these people were not meeting and discussing this is how we're going to do it. They must have experienced it somewhere else.
Right.
And where else could they have experienced it? But in Africa. The cooperative philosophy existed in
Mhm.
Africa. It is something that they brought with them. So you see, this whole thing about minimizing the black man, the African, for what he has done for this world is not something that is only happening now. It was
Mhm.
all the while. So
Yeah.
we introduced cooperatives, but we are not given the credit. And do
Right.
you know, cooperatives are among the most successful businesses in Europe and America today.
Mhm.
But in Guyana, because of whatever reason, it was stymied even after we became independent and
Mhm.
we went into this cooperative mode.
Okay, well, thank you for that. When I brought up the money and the Africans, it's because that's a recorded story in history, and there's much more to that. So I'm glad you brought that dimension. But I don't want to go back into that other thing because I was reading an account by one of the shareholders about
Mhm.
the dispute that he had. But I'm not going to go into that today. But I can recommend a book that people can go read. And the book is only one account. So there are so many accounts. It's not exhaustive.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You
I'm not
see,
here to give exhaustive accounts.
yeah, yeah. I know we cannot, we have limitations in time on this thing.
Right,
So we can't really go into all of these things. But the
right.
whole thing of the cooperative, and these people have to pool their money and the way they operate. For instance, I'll just give you some snippets. In 1847,
Mhm.
Bedford Acton was producing over 3 million pounds of plantains.
Right.
And on top of that now, we had the plantains, we had the cassavas, and whatever else. but then the planters were not buying from the villagers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So,
They foisted the Portuguese on us. We had to sell to the Portuguese middleman, who
mhm,
then sold to the planters. So, in other words, they will put 3 Portuguese in Beavy, 3 in Buxton, and those 3 families or 3 men will buy all the produce from the African farmers and then sell back. No,
mhm,
these people won't do that because they like the Africans. They're doing it because they got to make a profit. That is why when we grew up, we had Portuguese in all our villages.
yes.
That is why when we grew up, the Portuguese were among the richest people in Guyana. We have Portuguese having large estates, what we call generational wealth.
Mhm,
They created generational wealth off the backs of our ancestors, while our ancestors remain poor because they suppress the prices which
mhm,
they pay to them. And so then the Portuguese were also the ones who had shops in the villages
mhm,
because they had the trade license. They trade this way and that way. They were the ones bringing in the imported goods that we needed for our
mhm,
subsistence in other ways, like the clothing, the shoes, and books, and
mhm.
so we had to buy these things from them. So we had to sell our goods to them, and they determine what price they are buying from us at, and
Mhm.
selling back to make huge profit. They determine what price we buying their goods for, the books and the clothing and everything. So that is why when you say about our people, the monies were exhausted. You have to look at the entire all
Right.
what is you know. Then in addition to that, a man at a jackass cat, he had to pay a tax. A man at a boat, he had
Yes.
to pay a tax to the boat.
Yes. But
All
you see,
so
yeah.
so many things coming up against us that it was virtually impossible for Black people, African people, to come out
Mhm.
as being rich at the end of the day.
Okay. So we are
And
looking at
because
we are looking at concomitant factors that
yeah,
impacted the plight of the Black person. And so we are here today.
yeah.
And our messages to our young people are
Think about what your foreparents did for you. Respect them for what they have done. As
mhm,
I said, we cannot blame them for all the negatives that
mhm,
we are enduring today. Yes, they made some bad decisions, but
mhm,
we are thinking today. We are exposed to much more information than they were, and things are not as there are mechanisms by which we can rise above.
mhm.
They had no mechanism to rise above because the system was totally against them. I'm not
Right.
saying that this system is not against us today,
Mhm.
but we can fight it.
Yeah.
There is there are concepts like reparations in the here today. So
Mhm,
people are watching. The world is watching to see what is
mhm,
happening to us.
mhm.
So we can capitalize on those situations.
So
And I
thank
think
you very much. Thank you very much. I
peace.
think we can end on that note, capitalize on our situations, and make our voices be heard, and let our efforts count in whatever way
Yeah.
we can. So, and it's gonna be a wrap. This is what the story said. We have a lot of things thrown out here, the myths we've heard, the stories we've heard, and we put them together. And now it's the audience's turn to carry these stories, discuss them in your little enclaves and villages and party and roadside and so on, and pass the message on. And I would say to everybody, like, share, subscribe, follow, and share it like food. Before you go, I heard you have a show. What is your show and where can we find it?
I have a YouTube channel, Login Elton McCrae. There are quite a lot of videos there. I do what is called the BV Triumph Report. I'm also on TV now doing what is called the Village Gaff. And that's on Alagala channel 16, but it also will be found on the YouTube channel or on Facebook,
Okay,
the
so
Village
check him
Gaff.
out on those platforms, Village Gas. And thank you very much, everybody. Walk good.